Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 106 of Dudes and Beer, live on the interwebs. We are back, folks. Things have been a little nutso in my life. We'll get into that in a minute. But tonight on the show, I am so happy to have Rusty Lozano, who is actually a music therapist and biofeedback therapist.
That's cool as shit.
He helps run the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He also is the host of the Therapy Hour show on iHeart Radio, and we're having him on tonight. You know, I love talking about the human brain, and there's been all kinds of stuff that's come out about the brain here in the last week or so, and we're going to talk about
we know
talk
so
about
much
some
about
of that.
all kinds of different things. But that brain we just keep learning about.
It's an ever evolving science with that, and we're going to talk about some of that. We're also going to talk about the concept of biofeedback, what biofeedback is all about. And things like binaural beats, how you can possibly even reprogram your brain to react to certain situations, as well as the actual subliminal world around us, things that we don't even know are happening.
That's kind of
and
cool.
We will get to that and so much more with our guest, Rusty Lozano, right after this message from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about brewing your own beer? Is the urge to brew there, but you just don't know how to get started? Well, Dudes and Beer is here to help. Stop on by the new Dudes and Beer Amazon store and check out all the great brewing supplies and gear today. We have it all, from instructional books and do-it-yourself kits for beginners to 16-gallon cooking vessels, carboys, bottling supplies, and cleaners for all you homebrew pros out there. Everything you need to brew your favorite beverages, even distilling equipment. So stop on by the official Dudes and Beer store today and get your hand on the greatest new brewing essentials. Simply visit dudesandbeer.com and click the Dudes and Beer store tab. Once again, that website is dudesandbeer.com and click the Dudes and Beer store tab today. Happy brewing, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.
That is right, folks. And while you're there checking out the Dudes and Beer store, don't forget that is an Amazon store, and I am all about Amazon. I love Amazon. I just ordered some stuff for the baby off Amazon today. But at Dudes and Beer, everybody, we're all about reading and growing the human brain. Whether it's science fiction, horror, history, your favorite how-tos, books are great. But in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it can be hard to find time to sit and turn the page these days. That's where Audible comes in. Audible is an awesome new audiobook service from Amazon and is the perfect way for you to catch up on all of your favorite reading on the go. You can listen to your books wherever you are with the free app, either at home, in the car, or at the gym. Even if you switch devices, you'll never, ever lose your place. Listen to A-list celebrities narrate their favorite stories, enjoy favorite cast performances, discover Grammy Award-winning audiobooks, and with the world's largest library of audiobooks, you're sure to find something perfect to listen to right up your alley. And if you don't love a book, swap it for free at any time, folks. All you have to do is visit the website audibletrials.com/dudesandbeer to get your free 30-day trial of Audible today. What do you get with this? You get a free 30-day membership plus a free book to get you started reading today. You get 1 credit per month after the trial that's good toward any audiobook regardless of the price. You get ad-free premium audio whenever you listen offline with no interruptions. That means no commercials whatsoever. You also get to build your own library of books, and you even get to keep the books if you cancel your membership. That's pretty rare. You get exclusive members-only savings and 30% off of additional audiobooks. You also, like I said, get easy exchanges. If you don't like it, swap the book out anytime for free. So once again, everybody, please visit audibletrials.com/dudesandbeer today to join the amazing Audible book service from Amazon and start listening to your favorite books with your ears today. So on that note, we're going to get into more things about the brain with our guest this evening, who we have on the phone now, Rusty Lozano. How you doing this evening, Rusty?
Hey, Chris. Hey, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing great.
Doing
great. So,
excellent.
Yeah, we have had the opportunity. Rusty and I actually went to college together many moons ago.
Wow,
that's awesome. That's a good time.
And it's absolutely, and it's been fun over the last few weeks, kind of catching up with things in life and
it's amazing
with
how
what
things
we
work
do.
out.
And it's interesting to me that one of the things that came about was the fact that Rusty does music therapy, things like that, which of course I make a lot of therapeutic music and a lot of meditation music.
Yes,
so
you sure do.
This is really wild. I got to start Google stalking him.
Mm-hmm. Google stalk your friend.
And I did start Google stalking.
Like you do all of them?
Oh, yeah, everybody. Google stalking is one of my hobbies. I love especially whenever having a guest, like just spending a day just Googling everything about them and finding out all this crazy stuff in the background. But to find out that he has actually become not only the host of the Therapy Hour on iHeart Radio, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
But is also helping run the Center for Biofeedback and Behavioral Therapy in North Dallas. Tell us a little bit about your history, how you got into psychology to begin with, because that's really the root of this, and how you came to find this study of biofeedback, Rusty.
Sure. Well, at the University of Dallas, our alma mater, their psychology program was actually based on existential phenomenology.
Yes.
And existentialism and phenomenology is really, really fascinating, but it wasn't clinical work. This was more theoretical, talking about understanding and having meaning behind, and understanding the meaning behind existence and the meaning behind people's experiences.
Yes.
So it was really interesting because a lot of the studies and the literature goes back to World War II and beyond, where you had these theorists that were writing about perception, and that's what started all of this. I was always a big fan, and we had a great professor, and it was just really enlightening to hear these different perspectives on what you see with your eyes and the experience you have when you step outside the door and and the world kind of imprints on you.
Yeah.
So that was the big start of what evolved into where I'm at now, which is now peripheral biofeedback and neurofeedback and then binaural beat music.
Yes.
But what happened is, from that theoretical perspective, it wasn't really clinically based. It was just more an understanding and having a platform of estimating, this person exists in this way, and the meaning of their life and the meaning of their experiences. You can get a pretty much summation of understanding who a person really is. So
that's pretty deep.
It's really deep, man. And, it's very hippie-like, but I love that stuff, and I think that it's all of those theories, they still hold true today. I still reference them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I think that technology is now getting to a point where it can't surpass our humanity, and we have to evolve, and we have to kind of mesh with the evolving world around us in technology. So why not harness it? And so here comes the structure of biofeedback. In my graduate program, I discovered a biofeedback program at the University of North Texas, and I was really intrigued. Somebody had told me about it, but I don't think I really got into it until I was there and I had a conversation with the assistant director, and it was about sensations. It goes back to the sensations that you experience in the body, and what causes those sensations to create symptoms, negative symptoms like headaches, anxiety conditions, anger, phobias. So then that kind of, I saw the connection. There was an extension there from what I've learned. And so I looked at it, but now we're using instrumentation to kind of measure the physiological effects in the body. So you have the fight or flight response, which is your elevated heart rate, pupils dilate, breathing becomes really rapid, muscles tense up, skin begins to sweat. So you feel something physical. Let's say, for example, if you have a fear of heights or a fear of dogs or a fear of, thunderstorms, there's a very real mechanism. Why is it that one person can have such a pronounced difference in that experience than like the other. So why is it that some people have these fears and some don't? Well, it's that physical basis that actually creates it, the physical discomfort. And so what peripheral biofeedback has done is actually now it maps it out on a computer screen. So you can see it. Well,
sure.
You have these sensors that are measuring muscle tension, sensors that are measuring breathing.
Technology.
And you can see it's really cool, man, because, you know, it's actually projecting it onto a computer screen. And you can see these levels. Now it's becoming more statistical.
Now, is this done through the typical study means of showing people stimulus, giving them audio stimulation, things like that?
Well, that's an auxiliary of this.
Sure.
Because what that branches into then is the effective influences on our experiences, our perceptions, our immediate emotional state, availability. So you're talking about very core essence of happiness, core essence of, anger, core essence of emotions, bliss,
And it was interesting to me that the first thing that you brought up, because it is so systemic and so hardwired into us, is the concept of fight or flight. And the amygdala of the brain, that reptilian part of the brain, is so entirely hardwired into us. In a good, I would say 80% of our responses, period. And it really does take some fighting to kind of get past that sometimes. I'm someone who has some ADHD going on. Not only that, but I've got anxiety. I've got some anxiety issues, and I do some pretty high pressure, high technical necessity live AV stuff. And sometimes, being acrophobic even, I'll go up on a 35-foot ladder. I have to do it all the time. But at about like foot 10 or 15 off the ground, even though I know I'm safe, even though I know it's an A-frame ladder and I got someone on the other side, I literally start pouring sweat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's an autonomic response.
Very much so.
The fear.
It's automatic.
Yeah. It's like I fully know that the fear is irrational. I have no reason for it whatsoever, even when I'm in a lift.
Right.
Even, like I got something solid underneath me.
Just somehow you're wired that way,
Yeah. And the person next to me who I'm working with is hanging out by 3 feet just doing his job. And I'm up there like...
But you keep stopping and like looking around going, whoa.
Yeah, and I know I got to be up there, and I'm like, hey, man, tell you what, I will cable monkey for you. I will look straight down and get these cables and hand them to you, okay?
Right.
I will be there. I will do it. But, there's only so much stimulus that I can deal with before that anxiety kicks in.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody is wired differently in that way. And
we're wired differently. And it's what's interesting is that sometimes I get this question a lot, like what causes this? How do we become this way? And that's a loaded question, because some of it is the result of influence.
Sure.
And some of it is just, plain hereditary. So it's more in the genes, and it's more more associated with how your brain is just wired. I have a family that's super brilliant, very highly educated, physician parents, and comes from a long line of established professionals. And one of the things that they have a struggle with, one of the things that this particular patient has a struggle with, is our thunderstorms, and darkness. There's seasons that blow in, and there's two ways of understanding what's happening. There's an intellectual, I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
There's intellectual reasoning and thinking, well, I know it's, nothing's going to happen to me. But then there's that emotional reason that kicks in.
Yeah.
That emotional reason kicks in. Well, you can't compromise with that. And, it's very deep seated. And unless somebody knows what it is and how, and what's actually creating so much of the discomfort, they just kind of go along for the ride, and there's no way of actually rationalizing.
Well, and it's funny because before show we sit around and we have a couple beers before show starts and we just gab and stuff like that. That's why, and I perfectly understand you have a routine with your children. Children require a routine, so. But that was one of the things I was telling Stephen about, was that like when I was in college, sure, outwardly toward 90% of people that I knew, I was a very happy dude, but inside, and I remember expressing this to Miss Rosensteel, my Spanish teacher, who pulled me
I remember her.
Who pulled me aside one day and was like, Chris, okay, wait a minute, you tutor people and they come up from a C to an A, and you don't show up to class and you make like a straight C. And that's the best I can give you because you don't show up. Right. And this kills me inside. And I'm like, yeah, but, I get caught in this circle of thinking. And I get caught playing a tape loop, and trying to figure out why what I didn't end up the way I saw it. And it's a self-deprecating thought form. And it's definitely a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we are so much in charge of that process in our brain. It's just literally
a lot more control than you think.
Exactly, and it really is breaking a thought form. It's literally going in and deleting that one hashtag in that section of the program so that part doesn't boot anymore.
Well, recognizing the problem is always the first step, isn't it? Recognizing the problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead, Rusty.
And it becomes like this awareness, if you've seen the movie The Matrix.
Yep.
And how, he has a choice and all of a sudden he's pulled out of this realm. And then he takes a look around and he sees what's going on.
Yeah.
I call that stepping out of the red circle.
Yeah.
You actually can either go for a ride. You have all these processes in the body that's being stimulated from a different region of the brain. You see, we're only capable of accessing 5 regions, 5 particulars. In our brain.
And what are those? Senses. What are those, Rusty? Just so people know.
You have hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, seeing. But there are over 2,000 processes in the brain. There's one process that's in charge of resurfacing the bones. There's one process that's responsible for keeping the eyes irrigated. There's one process that actually regulates breathing. One process that actually regulates heart rate. Yeah. And they're all doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And so when we think about how accessible are we to some of these processes, and how well can we control it? Well, we do have a lot more control. We don't really communicate with those areas of the brain often. They just kind of do their own thing every day. But here's the interesting thing, is that you can actually learn to communicate and learn to control those elements.
That's right.
And this is a study that went back to the 1980s. I'm going to cite a research by Neil Miller. And this individual, he first came out with a biofeedback study that said, look, we have volitional control over unconditional or these processes in the brain that are unconscious.
Sure.
And they're like, you're foolish. There's no way. And so he goes, well, I have these rats. And if you research this theory and this research, it's really fascinating. So what he had said is, well, I've conditioned these rats to actually to make their ears turn bright red and increase blood flow to their ears, and their heart rate increases and they pee on response because I have a sensor that's hitting the pleasure center of the brain, and every time the rat either spins a wheel or goes over and does something, then we reward them by giving this stimulation in the brain. And they're saying to this guy, well, that's just a learned habit. That's a conditioned response. That's just a behavior that's been trained.
Which
he goes,
in and of itself would be incredible to begin with.
Right.
Absolutely.
Make no mistake. If you trained rats to pee on command, like you've accomplished something to begin with, people.
You could probably train shrimp to clean the bottom of a barge, and get all the barnacle off. If you had the right kind of instrumentation.
Right.
But it's all subconscious abilities. So here's what he did. He goes, all right, well, you say that it's a trained behavior. So he carterized these rats, a different set of rats, and so he medically he made them go into a coma, and put them on little tiny ventilators and had sensors hooked up to their ears. well, actually, the same little the pleasure principle, or the little pleasure response in the brain would stimulate every time they would actually increase blood flow to the ears or create a urination response. And then the medical community was like, "What the freaking A? You know, wow, what is this?"
Yeah.
So he goes, "This is the study that I'm telling you about. We have more control over these unconscious responses than you think that we do." And here's the proof. And so after that, you know, the entire field blew wide open. This is like in the early 70s. I'd say 1972, Harvard University had the first school of biofeedback, and they pursued that. And if you research Harvard and biofeedback, you'll see that Harvard Medical is still doing studies in biofeedback. But it's not, you just don't hear about it much.
Absolutely, because it is a buried science, and it is something that, you know, a lot of people consider pseudoscience, and which is really odd to me, because it's just being who I am and doing what I do for a living. I'm an audio engineer.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but if you put the complete opposite coefficient of a frequency under a frequency, they cancel each other out. Like, that's physics. And, you know, the studies that you're talking about go hand in hand along with people like Tibetan monks who can control their heart rate, who can bring themselves, who can bring their autonomic nervous system down to a crawl.
You're exactly on the nose.
You know,
exactly. That's a study that was actually done by Elmer Green.
Yeah,
and that's where modern day biofeedback, peripheral biofeedback, is. I do want to make a distinction between peripheral and neurofeedback.
Yeah.
When you hear the term biofeedback, it doesn't encompass the particular type of biofeedback I'm talking about. What biofeedback is it uses electronic instrumentation to measure physiology in the body.
Yes.
So it feeds back information from the body, and it feeds it into a system, and then either renders a signal, like a display on a computer screen or a sound. And so that's called the biofeedback loop. And we use biofeedback every day. If you stand in front of a mirror, that's a biofeedback.
Absolutely.
You put a thermometer in your mouth, or you stand on a weight scale, that's biofeedback.
Yeah.
And if you hear about all the stuff that's out now, there's a lot of technology that is biofeedback. You have Fitbits, you have heart rate monitors.
Yeah.
And all of that is actually giving information back to you that's physiological or biological from the body.
Yeah, yeah.
So the two distinctions is there's peripheral, which is the body's fight or flight mechanism, and it's the peripheral nervous system. That's where the autonomic nervous system actually exists.
Sure. Automatic
functions, blinking, heart rate, and breathing. Those are all set on automatic functions. And then you have neurofeedback or EEG biofeedback, and that is the study of brain activity.
Yes.
And sensors actually that are placed on the surface of the scalp, and you can you can change different brain frequencies and train different frequencies in the brain to produce different effects, like concentration, processing speed.
Yes.
There are some studies on depression and also on substance abuse.
Well, and
so that's the two differences.
Well, and that brings us here at almost the half-hour mark. Believe it or not,
no way.
I know, because it's such an amazing topic, man. Like, I guarantee you, I told you we'd go an hour and a half.
Yeah,
but I guarantee if you got time, brother, I guarantee you we're going to talk tonight, because this is stuff that I have been deep into since I've known you for 20 years. I mean, Dr. Churchill.
20 years plus, man. I can't believe how fast time flies.
I know. Dr. Churchill and I used to sit down in the Rathskeller and have crazy conversations about subliminal music and subliminals in movies and stuff like that.
In advertising.
Yeah, and that's what really got me into binaural beats. And you mentioned them earlier, and in a conversation that we had one day, you were like, binaural beats are the future, and they absolutely are. And they
really are.
It's one of those, like I was saying earlier, I don't understand how people consider this a pseudoscience when this is straight physics. It's not a guesstimate. Like if you expose the brain to, let's just see here, people. Here is right now, the sound that you are hearing is 2.5 hertz. This is a delta wave binaural beat.
Waves.
All right. Now, delta waves are associated with like deep healing sleep. They actually pump delta waves into like burn wards and have shown that, healing factors go up by, I think, like 8-9%, things like that.
Interesting.
And, the reason I play that is because this is a straight frequency. It is one frequency pulsed left, right, left, right, left, right. And the reason to do that is to actually saturate the brain, to let it hear it on both sides. And if you can I actually have a pair of goggles that go in sync with these things. So you're
you have the Rusty effect.
Vision.
Oh, yeah. I've had it for
you have the lights that stimulate along with the sound.
Exactly.
Right.
And basically
that's Japanese. That's the Japanese study of Roshi actually made that very popular.
Yeah.
Really?
And now you'll see all types of devices that are using the same concept. Well, it's awesome.
It operates off of the principle of physics called entrainment, and the best way to really common man explain entrainment is you start walking down the hallway on your left foot, I start walking down the hallway on my right foot. Eventually, we fall into step together, and then we fall back out.
Right.
Same way that if you're, and it's a strange science, it's a weird science, but like same way as whenever you're sitting there in the turn lane and your blinker is out of sync with the dude in front of you, then suddenly they fall in sync and then they come out. And the concept is the more your brain hears that 2.5 hertz, the more readily it will produce 2.5 hertz.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I actually made an entire I'll play a little bit of it here in a little while, but I made an entire, hour-long track. I started producing some new music for ChristopherJordan.com, and that's all meditation stuff using binaural beats and everything else for, and it's...
So do you know where a lot of that derived from? Like a lot of the binaural sounds, why they're onto this?
I know some of it started at Harvard and stuff like that. But you would know a lot more than I do.
So,
I mean, I know the concept and the science behind it. Even lens field goggles and stuff like that, I'm way into.
Yeah.
But
that's awesome. Those are really cool. Those are really, really cool elements, and this research is just phenomenal. So, okay, everything that you experience through the senses, especially sounds, have an audible hertz frequency.
Yes.
And those frequencies, we also have hertz frequencies, and these are how fast waves actually produce. Wave patterns produce on a millisecond, or even beyond a millisecond spectrum. So you have 0 to 4 hertz frequencies. That's delta, and that's the slowest wave pattern there is, and that's associated to that what you're saying: relaxation, deep sleep. A lot of the deep meditative components. But in psychology, that's typically the type of activity that's more predominant, and this is in neurofeedback, EEG biofeedback, and we're predominantly found with depression. So 0 to 4 hertz, and then you have 5 to 8 hertz frequencies. That's theta, and what I like to do is use the analogy of a car driving down the street. So delta would be pulling out of a drive,
going through gears,
pulling out of a driveway, so relatively slow. And then you have theta, which is 5 to 8 hertz frequencies, and that's if you're driving down an alleyway.
Yeah.
And so relatively slow. And then the psychological, and these are all symptomatic. So not to really mesh in with the more therapeutic part of this, but how it actually the science of EEG biofeedback and brain mapping actually work. But 5 to 8 hertz frequencies is theta. That's the type of activity you have with the groggy brain.
Yeah,
it's starting to fall asleep. So If you see a lot of ADHD patterns, especially frontal lobe slowing in the frontal lobes. So the concept behind ADHD is that as you're trying to access executive functions and concentrate, the brain is actually going into a slower state. It's getting tired.
Yeah.
So the distractibility that you see with these individuals is a coping mechanism to stay awake. And that's how come ADHD kids fumble with things, fidget spinners and looking at sparkly things and making sounds. And they look for a stimulus. And so that's the theory behind that. So then you have 9 to 11 hertz frequency, that's alpha. And that's what we call an idling state. If you're at a stop sign, engine's turned on, you're not going forward or backward or in reverse.
Yeah, it's warmed up, it's ready to go and do something.
Yeah. And in psychology, in neurofeedback arena, you'd see more elements of mental processing delays.
Ow.
And then you move into the SMR regions, and that's 12 to 15 hertz frequencies. That's sensory motor rhythm. That's your first beta. There's 4 of them, and that's your mid range. 12 to 15 hertz would be like if you're driving down a main street, like 4-lane main street somewhere in town.
Yeah.
And that's the workhorse component of the brain. So you see a lot of productivity with that 12 to 15 hertz, a lot of concentration, focus, long studying. And then you have the next one, which is high beta, and that's 17 to 30 hertz. And that's 30 hertz and beyond. It even gets into gamma, and which is an entirely new field.
Yeah.
So binaural beats, you mentioned hertz frequencies. So when you play a sound, it actually stimulates that type of frequency in the brain.
Yeah.
And this is research. This is actually proven to be true. But prior to all the technology, binaural beats have always been around. I'm outside in my backyard, and it's a little windy. It's kind of overcast, and there's a storm blowing in. And what's happening is these leafy tree limbs, or the leaves are kind of clanking around, and it's creating a sound.
Yeah, it creates a white noise type effect.
Exactly, yes. And you'll hear the same thing with a brook, a stream of water, a waterfall. Cicadas come out, crickets at night.
Absolutely.
So everything has, even raindrops, they all have a hertz frequency.
Even beyond that, something that I explain to people all the time is what you forget is what you're hearing is actually part of the visible spectrum. You are hearing the visible spectrum whenever you hear things, people.
It's more than 3-dimensional.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it goes into colors. Like if you want to affect somebody's environment. A prime example is go into any school bus. They are forever seafoam green. They're either seafoam green or sky blue because these frequencies are known to calm you. These colors are known to calm you down. So the more your brain is stimulated by that frequency, the calmer you're going to get.
Right.
Yeah. There's associations to that, right? I mean, and so you think about going to the beach. And when you ask people, what's your ideal relaxation environment? What is most idyllic? And if they talk about a beach, think about the crashing waves.
That's right.
Blowing in. And so all of that produces hertz frequency, which then stimulates the brain to produce a certain activity. And those emotional, those characteristics that I identified. They also have a series of emotional states that are not necessarily symptomatic, but are more relaxing, are more for focus, or more for sleeping, are more for, excitatory. You can go to a rave. Yeah. If you go to a rave or one of these electric daisy, carnival things, and
don't take me back to '93, dude.
Don't take me back to '93.
So that music actually stimulates the brain.
Yeah.
And so then there's a euphoria that goes along with that.
Especially if you're someone like me who actively puts those frequencies at about 4% the audible level behind your music.
Wow, that's fascinating. There you go.
I've literally done that for years. And I mean, here's prime example. Puer Somnium is playing right now. This is the track that I made for my son. And I had it playing in his on a little Bluetooth speaker in his little crib in the hospital, and silence, man. It was because underneath this, laid underneath the, like at about 4 or 5% is that delta wave. And this is an hour, a good hour-long track, so your brain has plenty of time to dial into it. Yeah. And, you can put it on repeat, and your brain doesn't even know. You can't even tell it was repeated. That's fascinating. And even underneath that is the sound of his mother's heartbeat in the womb. So it's like it's cool. Even for an adult, it immediately feeds into these subconscious things that we automatically find comfort in.
Right.
And
what's really cool. This made me think of something. When I was actually shuttling my son around, and he was, he must have been like maybe 2.5, 3 years old. Uh-huh. I was listening to the radio, and he fell asleep in his car in the car seat, and his head was kind of leaned over, and his feet were out. Saw his little shoes. And so I was listening to 97.1. It's a rock station here.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
And
the Eagle.
Yeah, the Eagle. It's still around, dude. They're taking them down, but that one still survives. So it's a legacy. It's been around a long time. So they started playing, the intro to the Van Halen song "Hot for Teacher." It's all drums.
Oh, it's all drums. Sounds like a damn Harley almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or a cat purr.
It sounds like a Harley. It does, man.
Yeah, no, that's.
So what was happening is his foot. Like I saw that his foot all of a sudden started to kind of kick to the beat.
Yeah, started trembling with the beat.
That's crazy.
Awesome.
So then I turned it down, and I flipped on the the dome light inside the car, and I'm looking, he's still asleep, and I'm like, whoa. So then I turned it back up again, and his foot started kicking to the beat again. I'm like, wow, dude, what is this? This is crazy. This is back when I was just now starting my master's program. So that's the influence of binaural sounds on the brain. And so if it's in nature, now it segues into how we can purposely manipulate it.
That's right.
And it's actually used all the time. And I think that there are entities like, advertising entities and certain musics and television stations that are all using this to kind of keep us all engaged and watch our show or buy our product.
Well, it was well known, and they actually made laws against it back in the day when our parents grew up and went to the movie theater, that they put in a flash frame. They went Tyler Durden on it, and it was one frame out of 30 that was like, buy Coke.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Stuff like that. But your brain, or like, hot dog. And it was just a picture of a hot dog, but people would get up.
It was like a millisecond. It was less than a microsecond long.
Yeah, it's a 30th. It's a 30th of a second. Most people aren't going to see it, but some people will. And it's the fact of your brain is tuned into so much that you are not. And I try to explain to people all the time the concept of dreams and the fact that like your brain is literally processing everything that you've gone through against everything that you've experienced in the past, just things that as you're autonomically going through your day, you don't have time to process that. And I was explaining to Stephen earlier, you really, really have to give your brain the concept of a hard drive.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of these things, like you said earlier, it is a case of nature and nurture. It's not the classic, like we were taught, nature versus nurture. It's not that at all. It's nature and nurture. And when we have come to find fears, when we've come to find these illogical things, we've literally, it's just like going into the programming on your computer and partitioning part of your hard drive. You have partitioned a part of your hard drive to deal with this one thing. And we tend to, as humans, partition our brain to deal with one thing, whether it be grief, whether it be stress, what have you. And on occasion, just like with your hard drive, that allocated space gets too much. And if you look at your resources on your task manager, you'll see a spike where it hits 100%. And then it comes back down. And it's the same way that your brain works. Like that allocated part that you've given it has literally just been overloaded, and it's spilled into the other part, and your brain just kind of seizes. It's the fight or flight mechanism, and I think that's a lot of what we're up against in society today. It's the I've been telling people for the last month and a half, I've been in a state of cognitive dissonance, where my brain literally until the baby gets here, I can't think about that. You know, like in order for me to keep functioning and doing what I'm doing, I need to do things on a day-to-day basis. And for me to put all of my energy into thinking about that, it just leads me to a state of cognitive dissonance and freezing up.
Yeah.
You know? And it's really strange.
The stimulus would be overwhelming for you.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like why when I go to Walmart, I'm in and out. I don't go to shopping malls because eventually I start hearing all the footsteps and conversations. And it's just a sensory overload for me. And, you know, by using binaural beats, by using this stuff, you can actually start to reprogram yourself. You can actively start to reprogram your brain.
Is that listening to binaural beats or whatever, does it make a difference, or does it differ at any, like, say, like, if you listen to it, say, like, through different devices, say, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rusty, I'm sure you have, like the Neurophone by Patrick Flanagan and stuff like that? Where you place the electrodes, like kind of like around the frontal lobe or something, and where you're not really listening with the actual ears. Is that different?
I mean, I think it's kind of designed to do somewhat of the same element, but it's more now you're talking about probably electrical impulses.
That deals more with resonant frequencies and stuff.
There's
like that.
another one called an alpha stem, and it's like, you know, they have, you think about jump starting a car and you have these jumper cables. So the alpha stem has these little sensors that you pinch onto your earlobe. And then when you flip it on, the device actually stimulates alpha frequency through the sensors.
Wow. And, you know, it's amazing to me.
Sorry, I had to sneeze.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, there are apps for this on your phone, people. There's stuff all over the place for it now. And I remember a good 20 years ago, whenever I first got my binaural beat machine with the glasses and all that kind of stuff,
nice.
Like people thought I was crazy. They thought I was a crazy person.
Because they don't understand.
And it's interesting, though, because there are programs in there that are like, 15-minute power nap. And it literally, like, takes you a few times, but once your brain gets used to the cycle of frequencies, you literally go from an alert state down to delta of deep relaxation and then ramp back up to beta. And it's literally like you got like 3 hours of sleep in 15 minutes.
Really?
I mean, hey, I'm not saying go out and use this machine like, 4 times a day and you're going to get the equivalent of 12 hours of sleep.
Right.
Please, good God, people don't do that. That's how crazy things happen in your brain.
Well, what's really interesting is that there was a time when biofeedback was way ahead of its time.
It was.
The way that they discovered this was, I'll think of his name here in a minute. They actually hooked up probes onto a yogi. So you were right on the nose when you said that, this is actually all derived from more of a meditative state and meditative element, Eastern medicine.
Yeah, I want to say the research was by IBM shortly after they did their research on the data storage of quartz and stuff like that.
IBM pops up everywhere.
IBM was a major contributor for sure, and they even had like a very early version of binaural beats.
Yep.
With flashing different colors onto your screen.
Yeah.
This guy Elmer Green actually he did a study on a yogi, and he followed he actually had a yogi sit in the Himalayas in the middle of the snow in a little groin cloth, and he went into this state, and they put sensors on his brain, measure activity. They put sensors like to see how he's breathing, check his heart rate, And so then they ran all these sensors, and they were like, okay, what happens to the body when this person goes into this state? And there was steam coming off his body. He's actually melting through the snow.
That's what I was going to say, because those are the particular yogis that actually go out like in the Himalayas and wrap themselves in a wet robe
because they're going to get hot, right?
And so it's wild.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating. But that's how the initial biofeedback actually arrived. So what had happened is you're talking about now a study that's actually taking place in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yep.
Computers weren't really around then, and they just had huge clunky. And I have a actual museum of old clunky devices in my office. Yeah, and they're old. There's some from Russia. It's really, really cool.
Dude, I'm jealous.
There's some that look like battery chargers.
I got to come to your office.
Chris would be there tomorrow.
It's really cool, man. So what happened is that, biofeedback was way ahead of its time. And so they didn't have the instruments that were actually could keep up with, what the information they were getting, because they were maxing out all of their frequencies. They were maxing out the memory.
It was off the charts, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was off the charts, and it was hard for them to prove. Okay, well, okay, I'm gonna dampen this a little bit so I can just get a read, and they'll say, well, how do you know it's not because you dampened the filters?
Yeah.
So they ran into all sorts of issues. So what happened is, just like the Roshi when it first came out, the technology was way ahead, and the concept was way ahead of the technology.
Yeah.
And so now that the technology is prime, it's kind of making a comeback, and it's making a comeback in ways that people don't even realize that they're actually practicing, Eastern medicine philosophies.
Yeah.
The Fitbit, they have now. There's another one that's actually based on EMDR, and I'm not plugging anything.
No.
But this one is.
But if you have a sponsor, let me know. And
there's one that's called Buzzies. Yeah. There's one that's called Buzzies, which is based on EMDR, and you wear these two bands on your arms, and as soon as it detects a fight or flight physiological response, they start buzzing left, right,
ooh,
really, really hard.
Daddy needs one of those.
Yeah, it pulls, and it's in study. So if you want to get on, this is the time to contact.
Yeah, I definitely need to contact them.
Dude, that is sick.
It's really, really cool because it's just like the study of EMDR is you run your eyes left and right really quickly, and then it bypasses the
like a REM type deal,
non-conscious response. Yeah, it keeps you in the conscious state.
Well, basically by moving your eyes back and forth in a certain pattern or frequency, you're going to cancel out what's good. Just like I said, if you put the inverse frequency of a sound into the same environment, you get Knight Rider, like you get a silent car.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. That's how Knight Rider with your eyes.
That's how Kit works.
Good analogy.
Yeah. And that's what I think we'll eventually have kits that can detect things like that. And from a Bluetooth wireless mechanism, it's going to get crazy.
Well, and it was interesting, probably, and I see them everywhere now advertised, but probably about a year ago was the first time that I saw a fidget cube.
Oh, yeah. I know what those are.
And it's literally, about the size of maybe about 3 times the size of a die. And it's got 6 sides, and one of them's like little balls that you can move around. One of them's a little click. One of them's a little clicker. One of them's a switch. It's just got all these little
Nintendo game controller.
Yeah. It's just it's got all these little things that you can just fidget with that are for people that, like I remember back in the day in junior high and high school, the people that sat there and flipped their pins. I'm a leg bouncer. And even in the middle of philosophy class and stuff like that, I would be drawing the diagram of something that I wanted to build, while I'm absorbing other information. Like, it blows my wife's mind that I'll sit and watch a documentary while I code website, and absorb what's going on in the documentary, because I'm just in the process of doing what I'm doing. It's bad.
No, I get it.
I get it.
I actually had the TV on, and I'm actually surfing through my phone at the same time. My wife's not, she's not keen to that. And she says, "Oh, well, if you're not going to watch TV, turn it off." I'm like, "No, I am watching."
Yeah, and like she could pause it, and I could tell her every plot point of what happened. And it's kind of disturbing, you know.
There's other people that see that and they think you're not paying attention. And I know that.
And it's one of those, like,
especially on my end.
A prime example is me in my career, and for me to go to a bar and just hang out in a bar with 100 people is physically wearing. It's like I went to the gym when I got out. Wow. I am physically exhausted.
Yeah, your brain was doing all kinds of stuff.
Because, I mean, literally, I'm trying to block out every conversation. I can hear all of it. I can hear the music. I can hear the mix of what's going on in the music. You know, there's so much going on.
You hear that guy over there trying to get with that girl and shit.
But if I'm behind, but if I'm behind the soundboard, my blinders are on, and that exact same thing of being able to hear every little thing actually makes me a better audio engineer, because I now hear everything together and individually at the same time.
Right.
So you know what that is? It's not ESP.
No.
But what it is, it's an anomaly, and I don't think that we're really. I mean, there are some studies that are looking at gamma wave patterns in the brain.
Yeah, and that's just coming about.
It is. You'll hear a lot more about it here in the next 5-10 years. But that means that you're more in tune with these other 2,000 processes in the brain that go beyond the 5. You know, and so you're able to multitask and do things that go beyond, like the convention. And there are people out there like that. Yeah, they're kinesthetic learners.
It's a state, and it's really one of those things. And I kind of want to break you off into this for a minute, because as an ADHD person, and it was definitely something that I was diagnosed back in the early 80s. You know, back when it was still like they didn't know what it was. Just give the boy some Ritalin. And then they gave me Ritalin, and about a week and a half later, they were like, "Hey, Miss Jordan, get him off the Ritalin. He can't stay awake." It did the opposite thing for me.
Right.
But at that point, it was literally people were taught to teach to the student. And I had teachers that recognized that in me, and recognized that if they restructured what they were teaching toward the way I learned, amazing, phenomenal things happened. Yeah. And you know, for me, it's one of those. It disturbs me. One of the episodes that we had that was actually banned for a little while. It was banned by YouTube straight out, especially in Iraq and stuff. Was when the FDA approved. Oh my God, what was it? It wasn't Ritalin. What's the new one? It just left my brain. The one Adderall. They approved chewable Adderall for like 6-year-olds. And I'm like, are you joking right now? Like, that's a 6-year-old. Have you ever thought about the fact that they're a 6-year-old?
But let me tell you something, though. I mean, there is a study that's kind of creeping up. If you research neurogenics, and what neurogenics means, right now they only know about it in depression, but what they're saying, I mean, there is a benevolent side to this, aside from the pharmaceutical component, you know, and everybody back to wigging out about that.
Hey, some people, they're like, hey, I am a better person with my medications, and I'm here to tell you that, folks.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. Neurogenics is a study, and it's one guy that's doing it. And what he actually has is evidence that shows, and he's only done it with antidepressants, that when you stay on the medications for a certain amount of time, that there's neural pathways that develop in that favor.
Oh, so absolutely.
You're developing these neural pathways synthetically.
Yeah.
And so then what happens is when you someday decide, the medications aren't working anymore, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. Well, you already have a neural network that's been now established because of the medication influence. Yeah. Now, I'm not condoning medication usage. I mean, I think it has its place.
Sure.
And for the longest time, I was always against it, because I think that we can do things on our own.
Absolutely.
On our own, but there's a boost. And so what I found taking, you know, the ADHD medications myself, I've actually been able to come up with these concepts that are genius. I mean, you know, just taking my level of practice beyond like what what I could have done on my own.
Because you actually do get the opportunity to filter some of that noise out, and
you have unharnessed, pure unharnessed brain power.
Yeah.
And so I go around and I have all these little clips on my phone where I have an idea, and I'll record a voice memo. Yeah. And I was like, okay,
absolutely,
concentrate on da-da-da, and I'll make a little note to myself while I have the idea in mind. So I think that, you know what it is, Chris and Stephen, man, I think that we're on the verge of evolution.
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, yeah.
God,
most definitely. I was thinking that a lot recently.
Go ahead.
There's something big coming. I mean, I think that you're seeing now, it's like we're seeing the gold dust effect.
We are.
You're seeing these kids that are, there's a handful of them that I've read over the last year, junior high kids that are ready for Harvard University.
Yeah.
A 13-year-old that developed a more efficient way to develop power that MIT wants to, bring him over, and he already has a full ride and he's 13.
Yeah, there was a 14-year-old kid a few years ago that for his high school science fair project figured out an actual fungus that biodegrades and eats styrofoam.
I heard something. Yeah, I heard about that.
Oh, I heard about that.
You know, but more remarkable than that, going into the neuroscience that you're talking about, I was talking about some crazy news in the world of neuroscience in the last week. I posted an article on Dudes and Beer, as I'm prone to do. You know, I go through spurts where it's some days I'll post article after article on the Dudes and Beer group.
You seriously do that? Wow.
Check it out, folks, because there's some wild stuff that posts on there.
You might have an issue.
A study that I just posted was they've just discovered out of all cells in our body, liver cells produce liver cells, skin cells produce skin cells, eyeball cells produce eyeball cells.
Okay.
Every single cell in your brain is individual.
What?
Every single cell, they do not share a genetic makeup. They all have a separate genetic makeup.
Okay, so what reproduces that? Nothing, right?
Well, that's the phenomena of it. Like, how? Oh my God!
Yeah.
Like, how are you supposed to reproduce a human brain at that point?
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to take a tissue cell and reproduce that one tissue cell, but if that tissue cell next to the next tissue cell is not genetically the same, that literally means the fact that we are all completely wired differently.
Oh,
that
there
is no similarity, and there's no possibility of similarity between you at 10 years old and you at 50.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I've come to realize that and accept that the theory of that, the same person at 10 and the same person at 30 is different.
And after I read that, I was like, that utterly explains, to me at least, the true malleability of the brain and what it can do and what we can do with it. And the untapped potential, like you were saying, we typically only access five faculties of the brain, much less anything more than 8 to 9% of our brain's
potential. Which basically is what people know as the five senses, right?
Yeah.
You know what I want you guys to do, and tell your audience to do this.
Oh, yeah, tell them right now. You tell my audience to do it.
Go to the Mensa. The Mensa Institute.
Ooh.
And the Mensa Institute's actually designed. It's an organization that is for. They flag highly intellectual potential kids. So it's a society for high intellect and genius type individuals.
Yes.
And look at the because they give you an idea of their membership ratios.
Yeah.
Look at the ratios that have occurred over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And you'll see
there's been a spike.
Increase.
And by dramatic increase, you're talking, what's crazy is you're talking like 2 to 3% increase, but still,
and
that is a dramatic increase, folks.
And for a parent that has a child in school, and if they perform a certain way, they administer these benchmark exams, and even before third grade,
Yeah.
Not the STAR exam, but there are these little benchmark exams that they administer, and guess what you get in the mail if your child scores a certain way.
Yeah,
you get a letter from Duke University, and they'll say, hey, congratulations on the recent results of this, and we're going to be following your child's their work and their development over the coming years, but just wanted to say congratulations.
And here's the thing, because you just said that. Do they keep following that child's development?
Exactly.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people gawking and barking about like the benchmark exams that they offer, STAR exams.
Oh yeah,
I think that they do.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I guarantee you they do.
Yeah, they do.
They do. It's kind of creepy, but at the same time,
it is. Yeah, at the same time, it's like saying, "Hey, you think your child is a badass," but at the same time, they're like, it's kind of creepy that they're kind of, "Hey, you guys just came out of the blue. I mean, what do you want?"
You'll get a letter from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or something.
Yeah, this is how you become a man in black, right here.
Yeah, exactly.
But sincerely, to me, it's interesting that you bring up these tests, because I was one of those people that did horrible on the SAT but did great on the ACT. I want to say I got like a 22 or 21 combined on the ACT, which was pretty good.
I think I kind of remember that, but I can't.
And on the SAT, I want to say I got like a 950. Like, it was.
Yeah.
What's sad? I don't even remember my scores. You know what? I probably don't even want to know my scores.
And now I don't know. Like the way things are taught now, the way that education is done now is totally different, and. I really feel as though, and maybe you can agree with this, maybe you cannot. I don't want you to do anything that would be detrimental to you. My personal opinion is the fact that we have failed students for probably the last 20 years. As far as school and education goes, we have not given them options or opportunities. We've kind of given everybody the concept that college is the only route.
Right, yeah.
And we've really not given them the coping mechanisms and the actual logical skills that once existed when you came out of high school. And that's just me being someone who is a substitute teacher, being someone who taught at my church for a good 10, 12 years and saw the people after me come up. And, like they went to the same high school I went to.
You're talking like life skills compared to like academically skills.
Yeah, right? No, that's just it.
Yeah.
Skills that make you a whole person.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about, and you could probably speak to this as a therapist and psychiatrist, the coping mechanism is something that is so hugely important. We all cope with things in a different way, but it seems like problem-solving skills, coping mechanisms, critical thinking, things like that, are almost gone.
Well, what's fascinating is that a lot of those components, like the school that you and I went to, Chris.
Oh yeah, no,
they challenged us on that.
Hey,
they
man,
challenged us on independent thinking.
I will admit, UD is a world apart, man, and it is something totally different.
And it's like
it's
there was
a
one
mark.
person that described
it's a mark
it like,
by which to measure things. It's
and
not
it's
the norm
person,
by far.
I think one person described it, and when in my incoming freshman class, like, what is it like to be at this school? He said that it's like a turtle trying to explain to a fish what it's like to walk.
Yeah.
You just can't put it into words.
Yeah.
So, kudos to that school because they really unlock a lot of independent thinking. But, in the 1950s, there was an education theorist named John Dewey.
Yeah.
And if you read his works, he's one of the most famous theorists that has ever existed, and he was a huge advocate of education. And the essential concept of what he was saying is that we need to let teaching be more of a reciprocal concept. So it's not an authority, giving you information and then like you remember it. It's supposed to be more constructive.
Yeah.
There's a type of teaching called constructivism.
Yes.
And that means that, Chris, I'm going to give you a concept of biofeedback.
Yes.
Biofeedback is this, and I give you a definition. Now, in your own words, how can you make sense of biofeedback? And if you kind of said, you came up with your own, well, I see, a dog playing with a pillow and that chuckle feeling that I have in my stomach is what, my dog running around my backyard playing with a pillow, it gives me, and that's what I feel makes sense when I think of happiness, or when I think of biofeedback. Well, that is a valid point because it came from you. And then now you actually are taking a concept and you're putting your own spin to it. Yeah. And this is a theory that is kind of, it's really, up until you get to college, it's become extinct. And that is to allow a student to have access and play with information and put their own concept and put their own perception into it, which then makes the theory alive. When you grasp the concept, when I went to this biofeedback program, real quick.
Go ahead, go.
Actually, I learned from theories. I learned from a huge book that had little excerpts of information. Well, my UD instinct said, well, find out who that source is and go get that book. So I actually just went down this rabbit hole, and I kept finding some old authors. Yeah. It took me back to 1951 when I read about a guy named Herb Benson, and I read his entire work. Where they actually only gave me a little paragraph about what he said. I read the entire book.
Nice.
And so I developed from that perspective. I've developed like the basic tenets of biofeedback that I was taught in my program.
Yeah.
I've evolved those into my own, and I put my own spin into my own theory. I developed my own theory. I developed my own approach. Yeah. And that's the way teaching is always supposed to have been.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree.
Teaching is, and it's that Socratic experience. It's that fact of meeting the student on their level,
right?
And trying to explain the concept to that person.
Yes.
Prime example.
And giving them the confidence to go and take a stab at it. What do you think?
Right. Prime example was when I took geometry. I was in shop class. Geometry, out of everything as far as math went, I did fairly well in because it's physical. It's there. It wasn't full theory. I can see a cylinder. I'm drinking out of a cylinder right now.
Are you?
Things like that. So there was something concrete there. I could grasp it. But when I asked my teacher, and God bless her heart, when I asked my teacher, why do I need to know the volume of a box? Well, if you need to work at a box making factory, I was like, all right, well, God willing, I'm going to have something better than box making in my future.
Right.
Now, the Pythagorean theorem.
Okay, there you go.
Or the area of an object, perfectly useful because I was in shop class and I needed to figure out board footage. I needed to figure out an area of a piece of wood.
You definitely could figure it out.
Nowadays, the volume of a box. How much gear can I fit into this 18-foot truck?
Right.
That's perfectly valuable information in my field that I work in.
Sure is.
And it's applicable. But
applicable and but in a way that makes sense to you.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that's what is missing with that. I think modern day education is allowing those concepts to be understood and be defined in one's own terminologies. I mean, and that allows you to remember the lesson, remember the idea.
Yeah. Hey, Rusty, I've got some.
Try to regurgitate.
Go ahead. You're good.
The first, Mark Antony's speech to the Romans after Julius Caesar was assassinated, and word by word. That's not learning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not learning at all.
That's recitation.
To understand. Exactly. And that's what I think a lot of education is these days.
Exactly.
It's such a shame.
And Stephen had a question for you.
I had a question for you, Rusty. Like, I had this thought of, going to school and everything, and on a personal thing on mine was that, like, they're trying to teach me things at the point of sometime not every mind is ready to absorb the knowledge that's trying to be pushed into their brain. And I seem to have been more open-minded in assuming and absorbing information after the fact. So very much so then academically during the school years, I wasn't, very much in tune to, say, math or whatever it may have been, and gotten better after the fact. And I think it was partly because of the brain of mine, and probably so to a lot of people, that the brain itself was just not ready at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it does. That would be Piaget.
Yeah,
we have developmental models of learning, and when you're a child, your theory of learning, your understanding of the world is more concrete based. I mean, color, they don't understand abstract, concepts. When you ground a kid, they don't understand that you can't have your phone. You did this. I mean, and they're asking for their phone after 15 minutes, and they're like, I don't get it. Well, why can't I have my phone? I mean, I think that a lot of education.
Hence the point of a 5-minute timeout.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a light year for a kid. But I think that learning has become so abstract and so complicated that it becomes like a Rubik's cube. That you have to learn from a sensei, if you will.
Yeah.
And you may understand things in a certain way that other people don't. And your level of understanding may be more kinesthetic. I mean, there are three main axes of learning. There's kinesthetic, there's visual, and there's auditory.
Yes.
You're either going to remember what you see, remember what you hear, or you're going to do it and remember how to make it.
Yes.
So it could be that, your strength is more opposite to the way the information is being given to you.
Right.
And so now you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and these concepts don't make sense to you. That is a problem that so many students face in this country on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I did.
And it's such a tragedy because these are all the Einsteins. These are all the Alexander Bells. These are all the people that can take a concept and make it better.
Exactly.
Right. If given the freedom to have confidence with it, but we lose so much because so much of our education system is set up on a visual and auditory arena. So,
absolutely.
Remember it. Remember what you read. And remember what you heard.
And that's just it. We have removed the kinetic. We've removed auto shop. We've removed shop class. We've removed art. Right. We've removed home ec. We've removed all these things that, like, hey, there's some people like a former co-host of this show, Nelson Kugel, who went back to become a shop manager because he loves turning a wrench and fixing cars.
Right.
You know how you find out about that? You turn a wrench and you fix a car.
The hard way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I found out I loved building with wood and making things because I took shop class. I found out about had someone told me that 20 years down the road, I would be doing what I did in technical theater in high school for a living. Number one, I may not have ever met you, Rusty. I may not have ever met my wife.
Wow.
Like quite literally, I wouldn't have gone back to UD.
Really?
Yeah, I know your wife well. I know.
Yeah.
I know you well. And you guys, you were one of the first people I met when I came to that school.
Yeah.
And you guys, that rat was a safe.
Because I was there a lot.
You want to know? Speaking of like school,
you're so funny.
It's true, bro.
Yeah.
And speaking of school, I wanted to add recently in the last 3 days. I had to do something that was kind of mandatory. But anyways, long story short, during that procedure meeting I was in, this person told me that they no longer teach spelling or cursive writing in schools.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
And I was blown away. I had no clue of this. And I'm
we have a kiddo.
Go ahead.
A kid that's 504. Has a 504 accommodation, and cursive handwriting is an accommodation now.
Wow.
It's an accommodation.
Bonus
so he's granted the ability to do it. but it's no longer like, he has, like, everybody's learning it, and I tell you what, man, I can't. I'm
that
not
capital Q will get you every time, bro.
Does it look like a 2 or does it look like an O with a
exactly?
I don't think that I can free flow thought on a computer as well as I can writing it down. So the book concept.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and I would like to kind of delve into that for a minute, because as you know, whenever I was at the Rat at the time that you met me, I always had my poetry book with me. I was always writing. Even now, whenever I write poetry or music or anything like that, I cannot write. Like, I can go back and type it on the computer later. If you want me to turn on the microphone and philosophize, I can wax all day long. But for me to sit down and type it, becomes a mental block.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not my code either.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I don't really know why that is, being the technological person that I am.
It's just not your forte, man. I mean, that's not how your brain is wired. It's not how you access information. If you're going to turn on the water hose, I mean, there's a spout, and then it goes down a line, and it comes out the other end. But you can't turn on a water hose by flipping on a light switch inside the house. It's just not it's not the same circuitry in the brain. Yeah. So I think a lot of kids are running into that. Here, but going back to something really quick. I want to give you guys a message. Anybody who's listening to this, and even like future minds that would listen to this later, what I want you to do, and Stephen, this pertains to you. You're still in school right now? Is that?
No, I've been out of school, but I mean,
he was in school.
Yeah, I'm always open to learning. I'll put it that way.
So this is what I want parents and any students out there. What I would do in a situation that if you're not understanding a concept, put it into your own words, and then raise your hand and say, so it's like this, and then you give your own explanation that makes sense to you. Yeah. And you throw that out to the professor and say, yes, exactly. And you wait for confirmation that it is like that. I wrote this. I remember a terrible experience I had at a community college before I went to UDs. I was always into poetry, and I had
horrible ones after I went to UD. So opposite scenario.
It sounds like it.
Well, what's funny is I actually wrote this poem about, like, seeing this tall grass, and I don't know what variety it was, but it was like almost like a weed. It was all along this hillside of a bridge, and when the wind was blowing, it actually looked like waves of an ocean. I mean, you could see these swells, and it was actually, they were swaying back and forth, and they were all in unison. And so I wrote about that, and this professor said, he kind of mocked me in front of everybody. And he said, so I have a question about something that you wrote. You wrote how this grass was kind of swaying like an ocean. How can grass be like an ocean if it's not in the water? And everybody's like, ha, 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 ha.
Okay, literalist.
They're laughing about that. And so, but
whatever.
So,
I really do think deep down he saw more to that.
And what I think is that his level of understanding things wasn't on the same plane as mine. Yeah. So just because mine wasn't on his, mine is wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So he decided to kind of make a mockery of it, and had me kind of explain it, and he just still was like, well, okay. Yeah. If that's what you say. But I think that people have to understand that, there's a lot of individuals coming from different perspectives. Right. Don't be afraid to, like, own your own perspective.
Exactly.
Translate it into something that makes sense for you and put it out there. And if they don't understand it, then it's tough for them. Well, but if it's something that you like, I get this, I really do. Let me see if I'm right. And throw it out there.
Well, and that's just it. And so many times in Thinking Deeply, an adjunct of Dudes and Beer, where I do just sit back and wax philosophical, I talk about the concept of success on your own terms. And for years, I thought myself a failure because I was considering my success in the terms of other people's definition. Yeah. And not in the terms of my definition.
Right.
When my music is complete, it's finished. You know, if it moves you to not like it, let me know how it moved you to not like it. I like to know that as an artist.
Sure.
Other than that,
to be open to the feedback.
Yeah. Other than that,
an anomaly says an incredible amount of
I mean, to me as an artist, the fact that it moved you to dislike it, number one, mission accomplished. It moved you. So whether it moved you to pleasure or displeasure, I want to know how it moved you and why it moved you. Other than that, it's opinion to me.
Yes.
You know, and that's
that opinion should not define you, because you
exactly
you don't ever want to change yourself to fit the perspective of others.
I'm so glad that a therapist is telling me that I'm grounded right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
I said I'm so glad that a therapist is telling me that I'm grounded right now.
Yeah, you're good.
Well,
you're good for 2 weeks now.
Give yourself like some leeway. There's a theorist. His name is Carl Rogers, and he wrote a theory of a theoretical approach in psychology called person-centered therapy. And he's one of the only phenomenological writers. I mean, I think that the field of phenomenology psychology, they respect and admire him. And what he says is that if there are three core conditions: acceptance, unconditional positive regard, and empathy. That means acceptance, no judgment, and you empathize with where I'm at.
Yes.
And when you have those core conditions in any circumstance, with friends, with your wife, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, whoever it may be, then when you have those core conditions, then you're free.
Yeah.
And you grow and develop.
Absolutely.
But when you start kind of trying to change yourself to fit the needs of others or try to fit a mold,
right?
Then we start running into this situation where you become incongruent, and you stop, and like all of a sudden you have issues, you have symptoms, because you're not being yourself.
Yeah,
not being yourself.
So I think that what's happening is our entire education system is not being congruent to all the different types of learners.
Absolutely.
It's not a universal approach. It's not a universal way of allowing other perspectives
I think
to come
they
in.
should.
And so these kids are trying to change the way that they understand things. So they can just make the grade.
Exactly.
So what are you getting?
Because
you're getting watered down education.
You're getting some great regurgitators.
Right.
Some great repeaters of information.
The teachers should be able to recognize the ones like with the thought patterns and the thinking and the beyond.
Well,
and
it's
above.
not that they. It's not necessarily that they can't. It's the fact that because of standardized testing and things like that, there are certain things, there's certain benchmarks that you have to hit at a certain
like
time.
how Rusty's teacher,
regardless of who's getting it or not. The group as a whole has to grasp this concept by this certain time.
Right. There's a greater thinker in this group here, and we need to recognize that. And they ought to be taught. The teachers ought to be kind of more keen and sensitive on picking those people out.
Well, I don't think it's
absolutely.
I don't think it's necessarily a situation that they are. I would definitely say that it might be a situation that modern educational theory, because of the standardized testing, might be subtracting some of that from the curricula and from the whole paradigm.
But definitely not ridicule somebody.
Oh no. But it's definitely. Go ahead.
I want to share something with you guys. Chris, I don't even think you know this story, man. So when I was in high school, I was one of those kids. I was hyperkinesthetic, and they didn't know how to handle me. I was in special education.
Yep.
This is my story, and this is exactly the book in the writing. And there are kids out there right now that are like this, or even adults that are like that. They're down on themselves. I don't fit the mold. So I was told when all my friends in my junior year in high school were getting into colleges, I was like, hey, where are you going? They're going to North Texas. This one's going to OU. This is going to Texas State and UT. I'm like, wow, well, how do you find out? I was completely unaware of this because I was a troubled kid. I was, very problematic, very mouthy and bored.
Same here.
So I went into the counselor's office and I said, okay, well, how do you find out where you can go to school? Go talk to the counselor. So I went over to the counselor and I said, hey, I want to go to school. And you know what she said? she said to me, she looked right at me and she said, honey, college isn't for kids like you. You need to look more at a trade and find something that you can do. And dude, from that moment, I dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
I dropped, and I've never really developed. I tell certain people this.
Sure.
But I dropped out of high school because all of a sudden this person tried to define me, and I quit. And they had people coming over, and they were sending them people over in suits and saying, "Hey, come back." And I'm like, "Yeah." Finally, they came over and said, "Hey, sign this piece of paper," and I did, and that was it. They stopped coming. So I went to North Lake College, and this is why I respect the heck out of that University of Dallas, man. Because I went over there and I'm like, hey, I want to go to school here.
We had a lot of students come from North Lake. A lot. North Lake was a great community college.
It's a great school. We need your transcripts. You need your SAT. I've never taken an SAT, man. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know the scores. I have no idea what an ACT. UD was a private Catholic university. Yep. So I went over and I was like, I don't have any of this. I don't have a diploma. I don't have any of this stuff. And the guy just looked at me and he just kind of smiled. And there was a couple other people and smiled too. I'm like, come here. And they sat me down and it became like the story of Rudy.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, go to North Lake College, take these courses. Take these courses, and if you do well, we'll give you a shot. And so I went. What did I do? I went over and I took those courses, and I did. I blew them away. I went to the lab. I got help. It was a story of Rudy. I got into UD, and they elevated my level of learning to a magnitude that I've never learned before. They taught me how to speak. They taught me how to think. And if you look at my background, I've been on I worked for the Dr. Phil show. I've been on every major news network in this city.
Catch me outside.
No. Like I said, and Stephen can attest. Right here in front of me is a full page, Rusty.
Yeah.
Like I said, I knew you from the Rat. I knew you from UD, but I Google stalked you, bro. I got your creds.
Sometimes I gotta pull his leash back on Google stalking.
So what that means though is like, how can a high school dropout be working on his PhD? How can a high school dropout be, get this far in the system? Well, this goes back to the whole science of what the reason I got into biofeedback. I didn't let things like that faze me. I didn't let influences scare me. My dad always reinforced to me, hey, if you get knocked down, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
Right.
So that's the theory that I live by. And,
but if you didn't have that.
So when people are like sitting there doubting you, and they doubt, kids out there in school, they doubt your ability, or you're doubting yourself, you're down on yourself, you don't have the grades. Dude, all you have to do is just tweak it so that it makes sense to you. Yeah. And you unlock an entire complete ability. And this is what I do now, and while I'm in practice, is I find kids like myself.
Yeah.
And I polish them up, and I'm like get them on the right path.
Absolutely.
And point them in a direction and let them know that they can do anything that they want, because they really can.
Yeah. No.
Influence.
It is absolutely a reality that you build. And, one of the things I wanted to get into was how the brain actually controls the body. Because one of the things that y'all do there is pain relief, things like that. Just so everybody knows, you can go and check out some of the work from Rusty's Center at onlinebiofeedback.com is the website. You can hop over there, check out some of the different programs, some of the different therapies that they offer. But explain to us exactly how much the brain has to play in what's going on with us physiologically, and what's going on with us as far as health in general.
So stick with me on this. We're going to go a little deep.
Go for it.
Okay. So the brain is encapsulated in a shell, and it rides on top of the entire body.
Yep.
It's never stepped foot outside of this cranium. It's never seen the light of day. It's never had a beer. It's never had a steak. It's never been in the ocean. It's never even been in your room. It's always been encapsulated inside of this little cranium. But it uses sensors to detect the outside world. Sensors to see, which is our eyes. sensors to detect temperature, sensors to detect hunger, tiredness. I need to pee. I'm tired. I need to go to sleep. I feel sick. So sensors that tell the brain what's going on in the outside world. So what happens is whatever the sensors feel in the body is going to influence how the brain responds. So you could be looking at an ocean with dolphins in it, and if your body is tensed up and the sensors are going off, kind of like that game of Operation, where if you touch the side, it goes, and then you did something wrong. Well, if those sensors are actually activated, then it's telling the brain that there's something wrong, and there's two responses. One is a parasympathetic relaxation response. The other is a sympathetic fight or flight response.
Well, and just real quick, because as someone who just had a baby, as someone who dated a massage therapist, knows a little bit about Reiki and chi centers and stuff, there's actually a reason why when you hold and cradle a baby by the sacrum and the nape of the neck, there's a parasympathetic nervous system and a nervous system. And there's a reason why when somebody holds you, when they hug you, it feels good. Because there's that connection square on the back of the neck and on the square of the back. That's the same place that you were held when you were a baby.
It's like a comforting feeling, huh?
It's literally like your hands complete the circuit of the parasympathetic nervous system and relax you. So it's interesting that you bring up those two topics. Explain the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system to people.
So the parasympathetic is the relaxation response. Latin for para, P-A-R-A, means stop. Sympathetic is the fight or flight response. Yeah. So when they're both neurochemically driven, the fight or flight response is actually driven by corticotropins and cortisol is released from the hypothalamus. The parasympathetic responses are actually driven more by serotonins and norepinephrines, and also you have, for every square inch of the skin in your body, from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head, you have endorphin glands packed in the skin. Yeah. So you can go get a massage, and why do you feel so loopy and great? Because you've just secreted endorphins into the bloodstream. Yeah. And so you're kind of high. You're euphoric with endorphins.
You got a normal high.
We're actually built for good. We're built.
Yeah. We're built to feel good.
Yes. So what happens is, just like the Pavlovian dogs, meat powder gets sprayed into their mouth when there's a little gong. Well, over time they learn to associate, and their learned, it's trained response. They see a stimulus, it produces a response. It's conditioned response, conditioned stimulus. The stimulus is what we see. If it's going into school, if it's getting badgered by your parents, if it's getting bullied by school or grades or being ridiculed, well, you learn from that. And when you learn from it, then you start to develop a resistance to it. And so we have trillions of these resistances. I mean, this has been going on since we were kids. I don't like the way food tastes. I don't like these smells. I don't like, cold, or, I don't like these sounds. I mean, I don't like this color. Yeah. So odors, aromas. So
peas taste like dirt.
Learned responses.
Yeah.
So the learned response is anytime that you run across one of these triggers, it actually increases, or it triggers one of these fight or flight sympathetic response. Huh. Sympathetic is the fight or flight response, which feels uncomfortable. Your muscle, and let's use the example of, seeing a saber-toothed cat. Muscles tense up, pupils dilate, breathing gets really rapid, blood pulls back from the extremities, skin begins to sweat. That's a very physical response.
And you lose logical thinking, right?
Well, I mean, you can't think logically at that point. You're thinking now instinctually survival.
Right. Yeah.
So you feel uncomfortable. And so you can ride at a low-level fight or flight without feeling the instinctual survival mechanism. And there are different grades of it. You put somebody in front of a cockroach, they're like, and they scream and they have a phobic reaction. Or if they tolerate, getting a shot, and they really disdain shots and like the whole process of getting, inoculated with antibodies. So, but they muscle through it.
Well, yeah.
So what happens?
Go ahead.
What happens then is that there's, at any given moment, we have a whole library of these conditioned responses, and it feels uncomfortable. This is where the whole process of influences come from. If it's teacher, if it's school, if it's whatever it is, you're encountering it over a long period of time, you learn from it. So what robs the purity of life, or what robs the quality of life? Well, as you continue to muscle through these things, you can have a tainted experience. Let's say that you really wanted to go to this bar and like you've heard about it, or this restaurant, the steak restaurant, and then the food was just terrible and the service is terrible. You're like, oh, well, I don't want to come back here. That's a programmed response. And anytime that the brain is in a situation that recognizes anything slightly similar to that experience, it's going to say, I suspect that this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
So
this is where social biases come from. This is where people don't realize that it is so ingrained inside of us as people.
You look at different races, you look at people of color, you look at, and then but then you hear them speak or you hear their contribution, you're like, oh, well, this one's different. Well, why? Why is it that this 13-year-old girl who just got a full ride to Harvard and Yale and all these Ivy League colleges is a young African-American girl? She's African-American, she's black, but all of a sudden, because she's accomplished something, like now she's praised and like looked upon like, this like anomaly. She's been accepted. Yeah. So, but you're right. Yeah, we have these biases based on just our initial perception.
Exactly.
So here's the remedy, and this is for everybody.
Absolutely.
The remedy is the urge. There's an urge to respond with this conditioned response. There's an urge to respond with this negative emotion. So what you do is, like, once it happens, you recognize it. Okay, I'm not feeling good at this restaurant.
Yeah.
But once I'm aware of it, I can actually start doing things. I can slow my breathing down, calm my body, relax my muscles. I can counteract the physical manifestation.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it creates a different effect. And then all of a sudden what you've done is you just completely just annihilated that conditioned response. And so you're like, oh, well, you know what? That steakhouse actually wasn't that bad this time. I don't mind going back there again. Yeah. I mean, the first time was kind of crappy, but, maybe that was just now, it was just whatever, happenstance.
Yeah.
So what you do in order to train yourself, it goes back to this whole concept of biofeedback and why this is so important. If you can train your body to not respond to the stressors, train a parasympathetic response in the face of a sympathetic stimulus, then what happens is you unlearn that. And when you start detangling and you unlearn all of these conditioned responses, and this is where critical constructivism comes in as a theory, because the one example that they used was a Bible Belt Southern Baptist girl goes to college, and she's been told her whole life that homosexuals are bad and they're the devil and they're terrible people, and that's what she was raised understanding. And then she went to school and she met a homosexual male, and that made her laugh, and she was like, this guy's okay, and I don't really actually mind him. And so all that stuff that I was told about him is not true. Well, she just untrained that influence. So that untrained that discomfort in the body. So when you learn to use relaxation techniques in the face of stress, then you start untangling all these influences that we're going to go to war, influences that there's Illuminati, influences that there's, negative things that are out to get us, influences that rob life from like the purity of what it is, and saying, well, you need this in order to feel free. You need a drug. Well,
and that's where I want to get into the final topic for the night, which is the subliminal world around us. As you talk about that, there is actually a subliminal world that we live in, with advertising. I did a track about it years ago, called The Slow and Steady Process, because it is a slow and steady process of desensitization that happens to us through advertising and everything else. And I want you to go on for that for the next couple minutes. Just explain to people what exactly how we're influenced by things that we see and how easily we're influenced as consumers and things like that.
We'll go back to that the element of conditioned responses. If you go to you watch any sort of television and you see an advertisement for a medication and they show sailboats and bliss and happiness, and then why you need this particular thing in order to feel free. The influences that are around us are always making us feel uncomfortable. They're always making us feel afraid. Turn on the news and you'll see the first 10 minutes there's something that's going to make you feel shocked and afraid, and you learn from that.
Right.
So what you do influences with products, and my hair is going to look straighter and longer, and I'm going to look so much prettier with makeup, and this is going to smell so much better. What you do is you actually start addressing this from more of a core physiological state. So in other words, if you feel uncomfortable about something and you feel like this is intriguing to you, then what you do is you stop your line of thinking when it comes to the necessity of it,
right?
And then look around at things that actually make you do feel comfortable and happy, and then actually offset the influence and say, well, this is just advertising. So you turn a physiological, just uncomfortable feeling, a physiological, emotional line of reasoning into intellectual.
Right.
And when you intellectualize yourself out of it, then you have power. You have an ability to think your way out of the situation. You can't exist and you can't problem solve in an emotional rationale. When you're emotional and upset and you're frustrated and you're afraid, you can't think your way out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And, it's interesting that you bring that up because a few years ago, it was shortly before my wedding that I had my first real anxiety attack, and I passed out in Walmart. It was my...
No way.
It was, it was straight up Moscow on the Hudson. If you've ever seen that movie, folks, where the guy from Russia who has stood in line for his whole life to get toilet paper and things like that comes into the supermarket for the first time, and there's 35 different brands of coffee to choose from, and he doesn't know what to do. It's just so overpowering to his mind that he passes out.
Right.
I had so much going on with having moved to Austin, getting married, being a freelancer, stuff like that. I remember I was literally choosing cans of tomato sauce. And the next thing I know, I woke up in the manager's office.
Oh, wow.
And there was
How about that?
There was an EMT there, and the manager, and the dude that was in the aisle with me. And he was like, dude, you dropped like a sack of potatoes, son. And I was like, hey, I don't taste pennies. I remember what I came to the store for. If you need me to count backward from 100, I can do that. I'm not taking a ride in an ambulance, but I guarantee you I'll go see a doctor first thing tomorrow.
Right.
And I did. I went to the doctor, and I'm not a huge doctor visitor. But it was one of those, I'm about to get married, and, I just passed out in public.
Yeah, and you passed out in public.
That's some pretty serious action. That's literally the gears seized up. And at that point, I started going to some talk therapy. And, I dealt with some problems with addiction years ago, things like that. And I remember telling the therapist that I had to come to this point in life where it was almost like baseball. I gave people 3 chances.
Right.
I will actively try to help you 3 times. And after that, you're up to your own devices now, man. I have tried my best. I've given you 3 times. That's all the energy I can give you. I'm sorry. And he's like, wow, that must be rough. That must be incredibly hard for you. I'm like, yes, it is. But it helps. It's my coping mechanism. It's how I make sure that I have the energy that I need for myself. As an empathetic person, as someone who feels everybody's energy around me. If I feel like everybody is a project, then I get led to bad places, because I end up with disappointment. Not everybody is going to listen. So, you know.
Absolutely.
And,
that's very true, man.
You know, and when it comes to marketing, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's very interesting to me that, and I think through our Facebook messages at one point, I was talking about the hertz, and I mean, this just brings us full circle to where we were at the beginning, talking about hertz frequencies and things like that.
What's that?
Our brains operate
alpha waves
on 30 hertz per second. You know, I mean, right up around 24 is what our eyes see at. Most film is done at 30, and there's been some really good studies done on 60 hertz and how 60 hertz in and of itself, which is the flickering of a fluorescent light bulb. Everything in your house operates off 60 hertz.
Right.
But 60 hertz is like this angelic frequency that literally lulls people into this state. So
interesting.
It's interesting that 60 hertz is twice the rate of film.
Right.
Which is where they put in the subliminal messages at 1 frame per 30.
Right.
Well, you know what's interesting is all your wall outlets, all of our electrical outlets, and all of our light
all 60 hertz.
50 hertz frequency.
Isn't that crazy?
And there was some. There was
and in Europe, it's 50. That's why you need. That's why you need in third world countries. You need an
inverter,
a little converter. Yeah. So,
but
you know what that does?
Go ahead.
So this is pretty deep.
Yeah.
What it does is, like, whenever you're in one of these heightened states, guys.
Yeah.
Anything that you look at is associated to that frequency, into that state.
Yeah.
So let's say that you come to my office and you sit on this black couch, and every time you sit down and I ask you a question, you get it wrong, I shock you.
Yeah.
And then you look around at my picture on the wall, you look at the color of the walls, you look at the lamp, the color of the lights, me in my office. Your brain is taking snapshots of everything that did this to you.
So basically, you're interpreting me at the frequency you're at, kind of.
Yes, into that experience. And so then what happens is whenever you come in the next day and you know it's going to happen again, why are you so hesitant?
Yeah.
You know, I haven't done anything to you yet.
Well,
but you're already expecting, and like the environment is reinforcing that negative experience that's to come.
Why is it that you have an aversion to black couches?
Exactly. Yeah, you go out beyond mine.
Why is it when you go to IKEA that you look at everything but the black?
But the black.
Exactly. See a black couch and say, "Oh, that couch is going to shock me." That's the learned mechanism.
Exactly. And you know, to me, it's the fact of you start looking at, especially as an AV engineer, as someone who looks at this stuff as an engineer. You look at 30 frames per second, one drop frame, you're not going to notice.
But you know what's fascinating, though, is you can, because think about RoboCop. You've seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
So RoboCop, somebody says, "Hey, put your hands up, you're under arrest." He's like, "Screw you, a-hole," and then they shoot him. And then he's like, his reaction is very intellectual, goes, "You are under arrest, put your hands up." And it's not like, "Hey, you shot me. Okay, I'm going to shoot you back."
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's a great example of how a person is actually staying their emotional response. If we become selective in what we decide to become emotional about, we have power.
We do.
You have a decision to influence. You all of a sudden, like, you can exist in a world and know that, you know, stuff is out there trying to influence you, or your own experience is trying to influence you in a negative way.
That's right.
And you can say, "Oh, I see what that is." That's too much of a hogwash.
It's interesting because it is actually, for some odd reason, antithetical to so much psychiatric doctrine. You know?
Of course.
And, you know, but what's funny is if you study Freud, it's right there. And it's as plain as day. The fact that, like, no, you need to realize that you are the one that's putting this on that situation. You're the one that is literally projecting your past experience on present time. And the day that you actually learn to judge every moment, every experience for the moment and experience that it is, sure, with some light of what happened in the past. I'm not going to say that you want to leave yourself in a point of danger or something like that, but to let that last experience overwhelm the present to a point that you're not willing to experience it is where you become stymied as a human being.
You become stagnant, and the world becomes smaller, and there are smaller and little smaller things that you can find enjoyment in.
Yeah.
When there's curiosity and there's pleasure and happiness and everything.
Well, and it's like I told Stephen before the show even started.
Oh, he tells me a lot of things.
Stagnant water isn't what you want to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not good for you. Not good for you in any way, state, or form. And, it is a point of, like I was saying earlier, with the present technology that just came out, the study that just came out saying that every cell in your brain is individual.
Oh, yeah.
That just proves the fact that your brain is malleable to me. It proves the fact that your brain is programmable whatever way you want to program your brain.
I have a question for Rusty real fast. Okay, say like going back on a couple maybe topics before, was that kind of like, say, if we have a human being that wasn't exposed to anything and didn't know anything, would they have the same reaction to, say, like a puppy dog, say, to a spider? When they saw the two same things and didn't know either one of them.
I think that you would probably see more of the pleasant experiences, like the awe and like the cuteness of seeing a puppy because of the emotion that it draws.
Right.
But then when it comes to the negative component, I think that could be a toss, curiosity.
Yeah.
It's until you touch the hot burner that you realize not to touch it again.
Right.
So until something like that is kind of set an experience of approaching the spider in the motion, I think you'll approach it a lot with more curiosity. Think about the guys that actually swim with sharks, and they go and they swim in a river with biting piranha.
Right.
And like, I would never do something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Right. But to that person, I mean, they're approaching it from more of a curiosity.
See, what I was thinking was
prime example. I have next to no fear of snakes.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather said he saw it at the fact of at like 7 or 8 years old when I brought a baby copperhead to the house, and I was training it and I was playing with it. And he was like,
amazing.
okay, so I need to teach you what these snakes in Texas look like, and which ones are good to touch, which ones are bad to touch, because he. Well,
realized, you think about it. I think every child is going to have that kind of mind.
Yeah, no, we're utterly a blank slate. And it's interesting because we're right back to where we were at the beginning of the show, and I love coming full circle. It's a total UD thing to do.
It's a UD
because you know what I was thinking. You know what I was thinking the whole time was during that type of conversation. That one was like Steve Irwin and now his daughter Bindi. They mess with very dangerous animals. Now she's quite young and taking over her daddy's job, who's passed away.
Well, and the thing is,
the fear of those type of animals.
When you have it was number one. My grandfather taught me the respect of a weapon. He taught me that this weapon is used to kill.
Right.
And the only reason why you point this thing at something is to kill.
Right.
That was lesson number one. And after that, it was the fact of there are dangerous animals. You have found a dangerous animal. Yep. And you need to learn to realize that there are dangerous animals and friendly animals. There are some animals you can pick up and some animals you can't. But he realized that I had no fear, much like Steve Irwin. I have no fear. I got no problem playing around with a friggin' water moccasin and poking around with a stick.
But because there's what's not trained and what's not understood is the in-between state.
That's right.
The curiosity. Until you see the danger, until you see the threat, I mean, why be afraid of this thing?
That's right.
Somebody told you to be afraid.
That's right.
So you don't want to stifle curiosity, because otherwise, we wouldn't have Shark Week, dude.
That's
we wouldn't
right.
have people out there,
Sure.
like going out there swimming with sharks and like
Good
filming
God,
because,
Sweeps Week would be
look at what
dead for
Jaws
Discovery
did
Channel.
to getting in the ocean, right? I mean, there has to be an in between state, and I think that staying the emotional response, staying the physical reaction, staying the fight or flight gives you an opportunity to fill those out, because there is an in between. It's not necessarily an all go or all no.
No, it's not extreme.
So,
life is literally a situation of the gray areas.
Yeah, there's a post
to get brainy about it.
I live in Coppell, and there's a post about these people killing snakes left and right. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, look at what I killed.
Right.
And dude, that snake was a rat snake. It's not venomous.
Yeah.
It actually kills rodents.
Yeah.
They just
and then
had
this
the
one
fear
over
of
here
snake.
is that one over there is a bull snake. I mean,
Yeah.
and they killed it. And so there are people saying, hey, that was a friendly one. I mean,
Right.
that keeps down the rodent population.
I do it all the time. I literally post like what that snake is, and hey, here's the not too long ago, one of my cousins killed a coral snake, and I was like, okay, number one, good on you. You got 3 babies in your house.
Right.
90% of the reason why you get bit by a coral snake is because they don't have fangs.
Right.
They have rounded teeth, and they have to chew on you.
Right.
They aren't gonna rear back like they're gonna strike.
Right.
So
Right.
you think
Yeah.
they're friendly, you handle them, they bite you
They
gently,
bite you
and you
gently.
go, oh, that's sweet, look at that. And as they gnaw, they are the only neurotoxic snake in North America. They are related to the aspen, the cobra, and you will be dead in 30 minutes, straight up.
Oh, well, that's really nice.
As
to know.
opposed to any other snake in North America, or even the Gila monster,
Right.
Where
Right.
you got a chance. Because it's a hemotoxic venom, that's the only one that's neurotoxic,
See, it's things like
and it'll
that.
kill you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have fangs. It doesn't have warning
No,
signs.
it doesn't.
It doesn't do any of that stuff.
It looked really cute, and you kind of
And
snuggled up
not
on your
too
finger.
not too long ago, one of my friends posted a picture of a snake and was like, "Oh, look at this water moccasin I found in my backyard." And I was like, "FYI, that
That's
is
a coral."
No, that's a hognose snake. That is not.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not a cottonmouth.
So,
its defense
the
mechanism is
lesson
the same
becomes-
way, but it's a good
Yeah.
snake.
The lesson becomes stay the emotional response, arm yourself with knowledge, and figure it out so you have experience.
Yeah.
Under your belt, you have experience to be able to understand it.
Yeah, and that's the concept of biofeedback.
But see, that's
is-
what I was. That's kind of like what I was getting at a little bit, was that we're sitting here talking about these type of snakes or these type of things right
Sure.
now. What's not venomous, what not, whatever should be afraid of, or what not should be afraid of. And then there's people like the extremists, say like the Irwins, Steve Irwin, Bindi Irwin, and how
Sure.
and they take it to another level. They take it to another.
Yeah.
level.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's literally a state of comfort with something that you have for so long that you have no fear
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's,
Have you guys
it's-
ever seen that show? I don't know if it's on now, but Turtle Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's like,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
goes
that's
in there and he jumps on a raccoon, man. And this raccoon's biting him left and right. He pulls him out with his tail, throws him in the bag, and he's
Yeah.
like, woo! And he talks about what that was like. And you're like,
Yeah.
damn, this guy just got like his arm, and he shows you like his
He
battle.
just got jacked up,
Right.
bro.
It just got jacked.
Yeah. And
Hey,
I'm like,
a raccoon
wow.
is nothing to mess with, man. They will put a
But
hurting
to
down
him,
on
it's
you.
like, yeah.
Yeah, to him it's
He's
like,
okay,
yeah.
that's not the way that you handle a raccoon.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
But
Don't call
but
Turtle
there-
Man.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a show, but you have to understand that you get information, get knowledge,
Yeah.
and experience,
Well,
and then you
but
handle these
it's-
things.
it's
Everything that you
interesting.
encounter is going to result in a skill.
It's interesting though because because you say it's a show.
Right.
Steve Irwin, it's a show.
Right.
Jackass, it's a show.
Show.
You came into college right up around the time that Jackass came around.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That in and of itself is a psychological study. Much like one of my personal favorites, Alan Funtz. What do you say to a naked lady? It's a great study in psychology whenever you have like, oh, look, my kite's stuck up in a tree. Will you please hold the ladder? And as the lady walks up, she's not waiting. What's the instinctual thing to do? Is you're holding a ladder and somebody walks up. What are you going to do, Stephen?
I'm going to say, how you doing?
You look up. No, you're gonna instinctively watch the person that's going up the ladder.
Yeah,
and unfortunately,
exactly,
this lady's not wearing panties.
Right.
Right. You know, and it's one of those like, it was a hit. It was the precursor to, you know, bloopers and stuff like that, bloopers and practical jokes.
Right.
But it was really a psychological and sociological study on like what people did when like they walked into when they're in an elevator. When they're in an elevator on floor 1 and on floor 5, some naked dude walks in with a briefcase. Like, how do you react to that situation?
Yeah, exactly,
In this modern day and age, especially in this modern internet day and age, as a therapist out there, Rusty, how do you see this affecting people? How do you see the modern internet age, the way that information is disseminated, the way that videos are disseminated, the way that things are readily available?
I think it's skewing our level of experience. I think that there are two worlds that we live in. There's the external world. I've been speaking to you this whole entire time from my backyard.
Yeah.
And the wind's blowing. I can see the stars. That's an actual world. But, you know, my senses are telling me what's real. So I feel wind blowing on my skin. I feel like the temperature. I see things. And all of that is sensory input that's actually from an external stimuli. But the brain gets confused because it can't tell what it sees with the eyes and what it thinks in the mind.
Yeah.
So when you are looking at a virtual world where you have friends that are laughing at your jokes or posting silly pics, and then you have a physiological response from those.
An endorphin response, a real physiological response.
Absolutely. And they're rapid, well, then, you know, obviously the brain is going to try to seek out more of it. And so then what happens is the confusion in the addiction element becomes that the brain kind of taps out from the external world where, you know, the stimuli isn't as rapid. And you know, if I want to go have a good time right now and be around people, I'd drive down to the bar down the road and there'd be people there.
Hey, I started a podcast to do it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You'll be on a podcast.
I mean, literally, I say it all the time. I started Dudes and Beers so that I would hang out with other people and have conversations with people outside of my field.
There it is. And,
definitely.
It becomes very instrumental for you.
Yeah.
But when there's a lack of that, and like, say, okay, I have to plan to go and like see that and experience it.
Yeah.
It takes time and effort. But man, you have this little device that plugs you into porn, it plugs you into music, plugs you into your friends' lives, plugs into memories, and it's rapid. You can go on a whim from like, you know, looking at a memory of a Throwback Thursday picture to music that was there and like, you know, posting and then going back to memory. So you have you have this hub where your brain is preoccupied. And so what I think is happening is that, you know, we're training our brains to become more used to the virtual world and the virtual existence rather than staying focused in a low mode in the actual world.
Well,
you know, and so.
Explain a little bit about what the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy does for people that are suffering from things like this, that are going through these kind of digital addiction issues. Because I can definitely tell you right now, I am a phantom ring sufferer.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, one of my ringtones.
What's that?
Is a song that I made about a year or so ago. Yeah. And literally today it was my playlist was on just shuffle on Windows Media Player in my studio while I was working. Yeah. And the song came on and I reached for my phone and it wasn't even in my pocket. That's how ingrained.
Response.
Exactly, man. Exactly, man. I mean, it's just it used to freak Amy out because my ringtone for business people was "Money" by Pink Floyd, and she was like, she's like, I have no idea how you do that, but literally within the first 2 notes of Pink Floyd's "Money," I would be awake and talking business.
Yeah. It was your response.
That's a conditioned response.
And booking a gig, like out of a dead sleep.
Wow.
Faster than I responded to an alarm. I heard your boom, bam, ba-dum, and I was up and I was talking business and booking a gig.
Response.
Funny how it's funny.
And then right back in bed and asleep.
Yeah.
And she's like, how do you do that? And it's wild because in our digital day and age, in this world, that's what we've conditioned ourselves to. And explain that to people and explain exactly how the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy can help people with stuff like that.
So I established the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in 2006 as I was going into my doctoral studies. And basically, it's a biofeedback practice that uses peripheral biofeedback and neurofeedback for symptoms. When you exist in a certain arena or certain emotional state for a prolonged period of time, it's a conditioned state, and so it sticks around. So you're talking about anxiety. I have anxiety of school. I have anxiety of work. I have anxiety of thunderstorms. So and then I have headaches because of it, because now you're talking about chronic symptoms. You've been in it for a long time. So what we do is actually with this instrumentation, we can measure muscle tension, breathing, heart rate, galvanic skin response, peripheral body temperature, and we can see if that fight or flight reaction is actively conditioned on. So we run a series of trials and see if it's turned on, if that's what's contributing to the symptom, which almost 99.9% of the time it is. And then what we do is we use a behavioral approach and we counter condition, show them how to use relaxation strategies to counter condition and offset the stress response. And that's a principal part of our practice. But we're doing it differently. I mean, this is an original idea. So here's what happens. I have two rotations. I have clinical and I have practicum. Clinical practice is you come in, you're hooked up to a biofeedback monitor, and if you relax, you can make a hot air balloon fly in the air. So you have all these breathing techniques, coping mechanisms, body techniques that you've learned. Hot air balloon will fly when you start to produce that. And then whenever you're stressed, the hot air balloon lands, so it doesn't move. So what happened in biofeedback is it's the original field was that you sit in a clinical room and you learn this, and then you pump them full of confidence to say, okay, go out there and do this in the face of stress. So that's a tall order, especially
that's a hard order, especially if you haven't been trained to receive that conditional response without the stress.
Well, if you don't have any kind of experience to offset the reality of what you go through, you'll just fall right back into normal behavior patterns, which you'll avoid or not respond well to your circumstances. So what we've done, man, and this is where we've actually gained some national attention. We've been on USA Today. The BBC is actually filmed a documentary on us.
You guys have had some fantastic eyes turned toward y'all here recently. I said, I mean, feel free to go check out onlinebiofeedback.com is the website, folks, and you can check out all the press releases and stuff like that. But
you can even go to our YouTube channel. Just type in Rusty Lozano, and you can see all of our media there. But this is what put us on the map. So aside from the clinical and sitting in a quiet room, I do a couple of things differently. I train the parent. Now they're informed, and I train the patient to either the parent or the patient. Okay, this is what you're going to go do. When they're upset, you remind them to do their techniques, because they're going to fall right back into these behavioral patterns and they won't want to do it. So what we've done is actually, instead of like trying to put so much pressure on them to remember to do it, we have a stress gym, dude. Stress gym is like rave meets obstacle course swings meets stress-induced measures. So you have this series of indoor swings that we have flickering lights and music and fog machines, so you can't see well, and the lights are flashing, it's distracting you, and you have to get through this obstacle course. So what it does is it actually purposely triggers the fight or flight response in a condition in a clinical environment. So we purposely stress them out, and then we hook them up to a biofeedback monitor, and then we have them use their techniques that they learned to see if they work. And so we can see if what we're teaching them works in the face of.
Wow.
And if not, then we go back into the clinical room. If they freak out or they can't handle it, we stop everything, turn on the big lights, and say, okay, let's go back into the clinical room. This is all make-believe. But we have a way of actually inducing it on purpose to see if they can use their techniques to shut it off. And that's what's so different about this. It's so next level because conventional biofeedback is so boring, and we don't know if it really works.
I like to go hang out in that room.
You know,
it's cool.
Quite honestly, there are two things. There are two things that it reminds me of. Number one, the Danger Room from the X-Men.
Exactly.
Number two, the entire movie Dreamscape. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember it, or if you may be a little young for Dreamscape. But I want to say it was a Dennis Quaid vehicle. But basically, it was about these people who were able to affect the real world by their dreams, you know. For a long time, I was somebody, and still to this day, I try to do dream work. I don't do it as well as I once did because my brain is entirely distracted with stuff. It's not as focused as it once was. But, you know, the fact that you're saying that you're physically putting somebody through the mental stresses,
right?
It reminds me a lot of what they do with soldiers, what they do with...
That's exactly where I was going with that, They're going through, like, bombs and crawling underneath barbed wire while there's fires. They're being desensitized. That's exactly what it is.
And literally, it is a desensitization, like I said earlier.
You have to get rid of that fight or flight.
With the name of my track, it's a slow and steady process of desensitization.
Yes. And you know what's so amazing about it? We've really put a lot of thought into it because, you know, not only is it stressful that the lights are beaming so fast, but now I can change the music around. So I can actually put electric dance music on, EDMs, and it's really fast and gamey. And then all of a sudden, like in a heartbeat, I'll slow everything down, put the lights into slow mode because they're all set up on DMX, and I can control it.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden they're slow, and then they have to use techniques and shift out of that emotion and match the environment. Yeah. So we're constantly bombarding them with overstimulation to see if they can keep up. So it's really difficult.
I would love, quite honestly, to do a follow-up episode of this from your location.
Of course.
And actually have the opportunity to go through and I'm trying to find a way to maybe
totally doable. I have Amiibo, man.
Maybe you have a term for it, but I would say the emotive obstacle course. To where, you know, because I am somebody, like I said, I deal with stress in my everyday life. I deal with stress in my professional environment. And it's the stresses that I deal with are literally handling individual people and stuff like that, and handling them on a moment's notice.
Hey, how about this, Rusty? I got a question. What about, like, have you ever done a study, like, in that room, like, with all the effects you were saying to create that environment, and then introduce something into the environment that the person there wasn't aware of, say like something very like a hot
like
lady
baby crying?
Well, I was going to say like a hot lady come in, you know, and stuff, you know, like that, something like sexually arousing.
It's not truly the Matrix, brother. He can't necessarily.
Hey, that's our next evolution.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the two environments, you know, at the same time.
But at the same token, with modern day technology, rear projection, things like that, there's nothing saying that on a wall.
Would that be like?
Couldn't have.
What would the readings be like? What would the scientific readings?
You couldn't have visual stimulation.
Through the roof, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have visual stimulation that pops up because, hey, if you popped up some visual projection, especially with video mapping the way it is now,
right?
With environmental mapping and things like that with projection, it's pretty wrong, dude. You could literally make it seem like somebody is on the edge of a cliff. Stuff like that.
It's a symbiotic. Symbiotic realism.
And
there's actually, what's funny is you say that, dude. Last night I saw, and it was a spoof, but there was a grandma that had a pair of 3D glasses on. Oh. And so she was like, screaming like, ah, and then and then somebody touched her, and then she took them off. Yeah. And then she whipped out a knife and was it was like, no, Grandma, wait, it's us. And then like she looked at the TV that still had the virtual reality stuff on it. She took out a gun and she goes, boom, boom, boom. And she starts shooting the television. And it was so hilarious because, it's that symbiosis. It's like that symbiotic realism that, where are you for real?
No. And it's funny because not too long ago, probably about 6 months ago, Amy and I, and it's a regular review for me. I love it. The movie Lawnmower Man. Amy had never seen this Jeff Fahey vehicle.
That's a good one.
It's a great one. Right. But what I specifically told, and I try not to blow things for people. I try to keep things secret.
That's way before Matrix, man.
That's just it. I was like, okay, the only caveat I'm going to give you before we watch this movie is please pay attention to every bit of technology that is being used
here now
for virtual reality.
Yeah, they're doing it now.
From the goggles to the zero-G chairs to the gloves to everything.
The basic stuff we're using now.
It's exactly what we're using now.
It's crazy, isn't it, man? Think about how old
that
movie is.
Not really, because knowing what I know now, having been involved with the media, having been involved with movie productions, things like that, they absolutely have consultants. They have people that are out there on the fringe, I mean, even my mother-in-law, Amy's mom, because of the fact that she was a teacher in the Boston School District, she was a union leader with the Boston School District. When the TV show Boston Public came around, she was actually recruited by that studio to be a consultant on, like, is this the proper terminology? Is this the proper chain of events that would happen if something happened in a classroom?
Right. To make it as most realistic as you can get.
Yeah, and to me, it's not that crazy, and even the use of subliminals for advertising. Like I was saying, the fact that 1 frame out of 30 isn't seen, that means at 60 frames per second, you can get 2 of those. That means at 120 hertz, which is 120 frames per second, folks, you can get 4 of those. You can now get 4 subliminal images into the brain, and it's actually been shown through research in Russia long ago that 60 hertz in and of itself, that's the rate that a normal incandescent bulb flashes at.
Seriously,
you can actually send program messages through that 60 hertz signal.
Wow.
You can actually make that lamp pulse at a certain rate and control people and make them feel certain things and make them feel disturbed, make them feel perturbed.
I'm sure they're way beyond that. I'm sure they figured it out back in 1950.
60 hertz, like I said, is like we were saying earlier, it's the natural rate that comes out of everything in your home.
True.
So it's interesting that all of these things tie together physiologically, mentally, and
it does. Fucking plays a part in everything.
Where do you see the future of some of this going right now, Rusty?
Well, I think we're still a good ways away from that. And
we're way far away from being able to inject ourselves into the internet.
What's on the cutting edge?
I think that here's the frightening part about it. You have a whole league of generation that's being raised on virtual right now.
Yeah.
And we're having, we're the last, honestly, man, this is probably one of the last generations that can actually distinguish the two. Hey, you're spending too much time on that phone.
Right.
What are our kids who have been growing up like that going to tell their kids?
Right.
They're not going to have that distinguishment. I mean, maybe they'll have some sense of it, but then even then, another generation beyond that, they will have no distinguishing between, like, hey, you're spending too much time on your phone.
Yeah.
So then, I think that's you have an audience that is more susceptible to something like that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty deep, but I do think that, we need to educate our kids that, hey, don't rely on on this virtual, this virtual stimulation to to give you a good time. I mean, go out and, go do something fun, man. I mean, go fishing, go take a walk.
A prime example, Rusty, about a year ago, I had a brilliant vision, the entrepreneur that I am, of creating analog Minecraft.
That's cool.
Which is basically some graph paper and colored pencils.
Hey, remember we used to play the game of war like that?
Okay. I know.
I get it now. I didn't get it before, but I got it now.
That's what I'm
saying. The game of war.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You get to fold the paper and you put a heavy lead dot and then
draw that shit.
And then
push
draw on the other side.
Push your pencil across it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, we need to get back to that.
That's
man.
what I'm saying.
I think that there just needs to be something needs to wipe out.
It blows my fucking mind to know that most kids today get all their information from their fucking cell phone almost. You know?
And you know what? It's crazy, and a lot of that information is right. So we're like, oh, that's great. Oh, look at what you can do.
Right.
But then, what happens when we cross that point where it's all misinformation? It's a whole other topic.
And that's what I was going to say. That is an episode in and of itself, Rusty. And I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with us tonight to break down the topic of music therapy, biofeedback, binaural pulses, and the future of them, and how they affect our brain, how we can use them to affect our brain, and the subliminal world around us. Before we leave, tell everybody, number one, where they can go to listen to your iHeart radio show, The Therapy Hour. And also tell them about your website for the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy.
Sure. The Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy, the website is www.onlinebiofeedback.com or CBBT, Charles Bob Tom.org. If you can follow us on Facebook, we're also on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. And in our Facebook page for the Therapy Hour, the Rusty Lozano, if you just go to Facebook, look up the Therapy Hour or the Rusty Lozano or the Center for Biofeedback, you'll find a link for it there. But we're going to be broadcasting our shows from via Facebook now, and as we kind of get a little bit more proficient at how we can multi-broadcast from different media outlets.
Absolutely.
But the gist of the show is that we take psychology topics and we bring in a specialist like doctor or therapist, and then we talk about it.
God, I really, really, really can't wait to hear this show. I mean, sincerely.
Yeah. There's
I want to hear.
We've been doing this on iHeart. We're just going to do more of the virtual stuff.
Yeah.
You can go to my YouTube channel, just type in Rusty Lozano, and you can pull up all of our shows. And we've had some really great shows. We've had some debutante star-like individuals come in, and and then doctors, but with different topics. But you kind of get along the lines of like what we're doing. But our hope is to kind of bridge that gap where we can now reach the virtual community and do a live show and have people log in and listen. And we're developing app for that and everything. So it's great, and you can log tune into that, and we're going to be broadcasting. I just finished my studio. I think I should do some pictures.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
So the studio is now ready to go. We have our sound system up, and
I know I sent you some proprietary information last week. I would still love.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, and like I said, I would still love to have a straight up phone call with you and brainstorm about some different platforms from you and different ways with which you can distribute this stuff and get it out there, because I really, really think your message is so important.
Yeah.
I myself, as a musician, have put binaural beats, put this kind of stuff in my music for years.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think, like you said, it's the future. People don't realize that they can change their paradigm. They can change the way they think, the way they live, everything through this. And it's... Go ahead.
And that's the neat thing about like the show that we're going to be broadcasting is we're actually going to give you practical techniques, clinical techniques, practical techniques that you can use, strategies that are available right there on the spot. You follow along and you learn them, and you take it with you. So it's just free information and free techniques, and you know, you can just learn all kinds of things.
We'd love to have you back on. We'd love to have you on as a recurring guest, especially regarding the things going on in society and how people can deal with the cognitive dissonance going on, how they can deal with that amygdala response that seems to be happening in the society around us right now, that's just utterly visceral, that is separating families, that's causing this division in our country and in our world and in our lives, that affects everything down to the root core of who we are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important, and you know, it's a message that I think that everybody's going to appreciate. Yeah. But it's just a matter of timing, you know, in the way that it's given. You know, it's not something that you have to be freaked out or worried about. It's just that stay informed and, like, you know, keep up with the trends, and that's it. And that's what we try to do, is we try to stay on top of the research as it comes out, and we present it as we see it.
That's it. Exactly. And once again, Rusty, tell everybody one more time where they can go to check out the show, where they can go to the website.
So if you follow the show, it's going to be broadcast from Facebook, The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, Lozano, Rusty, Rusty. You can also follow us on our Facebook, Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. My website is www.onlinebiofeedback.com. And I answer my own phone calls. So if you guys ever have a question or you'd like to talk about something, just give me a call. So,
that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
There you go.
Rusty, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. It was fun. It was actually a lot. The time just flew, didn't it?
Oh no, absolutely. Like I said, you know, I shoot for 45 with people, but hey, man, this has been 2.5, and it ain't been nothing but real information and good information.
That long.
And you know, thank you so much. I look forward to having you on future stuff. While you're online checking his things out, please make sure to check out dudesandbeer.com. We got all kinds of information.
Sure do.
We got some great videos that are there that are absolutely hilarious that get posted every week.
Awesome videos.
We also have the weekly episodes. We have the Thinking Deeply episodes. And starting soon is the Dads and Beer episodes.
It sure is.
Where it's
coming
literally...
up.
And this is the concept, folks, because the whole concept behind Dudes and Beer is solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. Dads and Beer is really about, like, a father's role in society. What are we doing? You know, like, what are we doing, like, you know, to pass things along to our children? What projects do we do with our kids?
On that one.
Stuff like that. So, yeah, as a new father, I want to get this wisdom from older fathers that I know.
Right.
And I want to understand things as far as society as to what it is to be a father. So, on that note, everybody, please stop on by, check things out. Thank you so much.
Check us out, man.
Keep on checking us out. Download the free Dudes and Beer app.
Yeah, it's free, man.
Until next time, everybody, remember, if you can't be good, be good at it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer Podcast. To listen to our audio streams and chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for both Android and iDevices, available on the Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.